Gosh, the world's a changing place. I think family offices are discovering that real estate is not real estate anymore. Real estate is AI combined with real estate, combined with solar. There are so many changing factors. Private equity, that's not the same thing as real estate, but like the 10-year lockup looks like it might be dying in the private equity space. That's making family offices be repelled.
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Why you decide to become an entrepreneur?
Oh gosh, I have 3 generations of entrepreneurs in my history. I actually started out as a school teacher. My degree is in music education, and that was in the early 2000s. And I taught in the public schools. I love music, always have been a drummer since I was little, but taught, and I found glass ceilings, both emotionally, physically. Like I just couldn't get above the plate. I was real blocked. And so it made sense for me to go into business. My grandpa ran a heavy equipment rental shop here in my small town of Madras, Oregon. When I was a little kid, I grew up in that business, learned how to deal with customers. My sister Becky and I were running that business when I was 16 and she was like 18, and my grandpa would go away and we just run the business all day. So then my stepdad also sold real estate. And so business just is in my blood and my bones. I love the idea of choke points. Taking out the competition if you can, putting them out of business, anything. And it's a game. It's a very exciting, adrenaline-filled game for me.
So then how you jump into the crypto portfolio for family offices?
Well, shall I start about how I got into this business? And then that will inform how I got into Bitcoin.
Yes.
So I started in the investment business in 2005 in Beaverton, Oregon, at a very small no-name firm. Although it was a nationwide firm, they managed $7 billion nationwide. Sounds big, wasn't big. Wachovia was managing $700 billion at the time. And so we managed $7 billion. And that company was technically ethical, but very high pressure, very Glengarry, Glen Ross, boiler room sort of approach to retail financial services for middle tier folks who, God bless them, didn't know any better. And so we were going out talking to non-sophisticated investors, slinging our mutual funds, which were proprietary, for a commission. That structure never fit. One thing I did, though, that was really fun inside of that structure was they said, call teachers. You have to call teachers. That's our target market. And I couldn't call teachers because that market was completely saturated. And so I just called out of the phone book. Cold called out of the Madras, Oregon phone book. And at that time, the town was like 6,000 people. And people knew my last name because my family has a history here. So I built my business just doing something that they said not to do. And I figured out a way to make it work. That's the stuff I love doing, is the stuff they say not to do. And I make it work in my way because it's a fit for me. And I think that's what entrepreneurship is all about. So I left that company. That wasn't a match at all. And went to work at a company called Waddell & Reed, much more respectable firm. They don't exist anymore. They were bought out by LPL Financial. But that was about 8 years of my life. Good. I grew a lot, and I was studying economics at the time. And I couldn't merge economics with I'm selling fee-based mutual funds. But my study of economics was laying the foundation for me to get into Bitcoin later on. So I didn't like the constraints of Waddell & Reed. And so I left and became independent, established what was at the time Veritas Wealth Management, same firm as I live in today, but just a different name, and realized at some point that Bitcoin, for me, was the most satisfying solution to the going off the gold standard in 1971 and the problem of not sound money. That we don't have anymore since Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1971. That hit me like a Mack truck. It was a very huge, and it was also a merging finally of my understanding of economics, potentially with my business, but I didn't know how at the time. This is in like 2022, 2023. So what I did was I just created a Bitcoin advisory services, a Bitcoin advisory service for my retail clients, where I would help them buy on-chain Bitcoin, separate from Veritas at all. It was just a sort of a side hustle, and I charge a little fee. And sometimes I'd meet with my clients in person, and we would meet a Bitcoin seller in person and exchange cash for Bitcoin. Perfectly legal, felt like a drug deal, but it wasn't. And so I would help my clients. It was a lot of fun. Then the ETFs came out, and that changed everything. That was early 2024. And now you've got Bitcoin ETFs, which you can legally put your clients into under the registered investment advisor structure that I already operated. From there, I built my downside risk mitigated Bitcoin structures that help to cut the volatility. And then the final piece of the puzzle was I started moving into the family office space, realized very kind of quickly that I love the institutional side of investing rather than the retail side. There was a beautiful fit for me in terms of their mindset. Long-term generational mindset was already how I was thinking. So that's how I got to family offices, institutions, and Bitcoin all at once.
So there has been a big transfer of wealth in the family offices, and now we have a new people in charge that can see more vetted in traditional business and alternative investment like Bitcoin. So what do you think that is the main factor that family office have changed and have evolved from traditional investments, which are like real estate and other more traditional ways, than now looking at growth like this?
So is the question, what is prompting the change, or sort of describe the
Yes.
change from
Yes.
traditional into things like Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a really thoughtful question. I don't know if you took time to think it out, but it's thoughtful. Really, I'll tell you, we're at the forefront of, if this is a trend, we're at the very front end of it. We're at the very early adopter stage, even in the retail space. Really, when you see normal everyday people on the street, very few of them hold Bitcoin. Very few of them even know what it is. If you ask to pay in Bitcoin, half the time the person behind the counter will give you a funny look. Then they'll go, "What is Bitcoin?" Move that up the institutional ladder, clear to the top with family offices. It looks like, according to a BNY Mellon study, that Bitcoin interest, probably more just crypto broadly interest in the family office space, at least in the BNY Mellon corner, is rapidly increasing. But if you take, let's just say 5% of the people are interested, a doubling is 10%. That doubling is meaningful, but still that's 10 out of 100%. So we're still very early in adoption. What's prompting it? Well, gosh, the world's a changing place. I think family offices are discovering that real estate is not real estate anymore. Real estate is AI combined with real estate, combined with solar. There are so many changing factors. Private equity, that's not the same thing as real estate, but like the 10-year lockup looks like it might be dying in the private equity space. That's making family offices be repelled. So the changing current investment options. And then I think it's a matter of second and third gen as well. Because like if you've got a founder who's just say 80 years old and he sold out for $500 million, he might not want to buy Bitcoin. That might be slightly before his era, before his time, but his grandchildren are probably talking about it because, after 2009, those kids were all born into a world in which Bitcoin is in existence, and they never had to transition mentally from no Bitcoin to Bitcoin. So I think the generational element and the changing nature of traditional or sort of material investments is at least the starting point for the conversation.
Yeah. So then tell us how the process to buy Bitcoin on change, how it works. What are the you were saying that you were helping your colleagues to buy Bitcoin on change. So tell us a little bit more about that process.
Okay, thanks. That's a fun question. We could spend the whole rest of the episode just on this particular question, but I'll be respectful. We'll keep it to a reasonable length. I'll tell you first how we do it at my firm, and then I'll tell you a few other options and tell you why we do it the way that we do it. No options are good or bad, and they're not right or wrong, but it's all about pros and cons, right? We do what we think is the most pro for the client from a security point of view. And that's why we've selected the way that we do it. So currently we use an outside third-party custodian. I won't name it because that ultimately could change at some point. But what you can do is you can hold on-chain Bitcoin at a custodian such as like Fidelity, and you can have an advisor manage that Bitcoin. Now, we're not talking about an ETF. We're talking about actual Bitcoin. You can buy it and hold it. Companies like Fidelity and the company that we use have made it so easy that it's just like opening an account when you open an IRA and put stocks in there. It's a very traditional wrapper. It just happens to be that the asset is held on chain, or the actual real asset itself. I think that's the most secure from a security point of view manner of holding it. What we do in particular, okay, so when you own Bitcoin, you get what's called a set of keys, and your keys are your 12 or 24 word phrase with which you access your Bitcoin. Now, it's important to note, if you lose those keys, you lose your Bitcoin. I don't care if it's $100 in Bitcoin or $1 billion, those keys are gone and unrecoverable. So key management is key, no pun intended. The way in which we manage is you have, instead of one set of keys, you have 3 sets of keys, any 2 of which are required to be able to move the coins. That provides a diversification of security, because if I lose one of my sets of keys, maybe my attorney has the other, and maybe my mother-in-law has the other, whoever the people are that I decide to store them. We call that a 2 of 3 multi-sig setup, multi-signature. We use at Veritas a multi-sig setup. I think that's the best way to do it. You can do a 3 of 5 as well, but it's a bit redundant. Now, that's other ways to hold and buy Bitcoin. You can go to Coinbase, for example. A thing that a lot of people don't know, and Coinbase has made it very quick and easy than what we do, to be honest, to hold Bitcoin. However, something that a lot of people don't know is it's written into Coinbase's contract that you don't actually own the Bitcoins. If Coinbase goes bankrupt, they own the Bitcoin and you don't have access to the Bitcoin. That's on the retail side. There is an institutional option that fixes that. But then the second thing to note about Coinbase is when you buy Bitcoin on Coinbase, you don't automatically get your keys. Coinbase manages the keys for you. That's important because not your keys, not your coins. Coinbase has your keys. A third way to do it, and there are pros, like I said, the convenience of it, but for my personal advising of clients, I don't recommend that people do that. I think key consideration is important. Same with Binance, right? Then the third option is you can go to a Bitcoin meetup in person, get to know people. And if you've got cash, fiat currency, you can say to them, hey, I have got cash. I want to buy Bitcoin from you. Do you have any to sell? And if they say yes, you'll go through that transaction in person, and they'll send you their coins to your wallet. You'll give them the cash, and you'll both go your separate ways. So those are a few ways that you could buy Bitcoin.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.